she's a Jezebel. St. Andrew Jezebel. This is the St. Andrews Jezebel podcast. If this is your first time listening, my name is Ashley. I'm a third-generation Panama City native. I play music, and I also grew up in St. Andrews. And today, we have a special treat for y'all. We have the honor of featuring the incredibly talented husband and wife duo, Lucky Mud, and that's Mike and Maggie McKinney. They're longstanding members of the Florida folk community, and they have made a significant impact by growing the Florida folk scene through their amazing concerts at Maggie's Musical Farm. This is a long one, so we're going to skip the community event segment again this week, and I really think you're going to enjoy this. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Today we are here with Mike and Maggie McKinney of Lucky Mud. Welcome. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Hello,
Let's start
everybody.
things off in a bit of a genesis. How did y'all meet?
Okay, 1969, I was stationed at Tyndall during Vietnam, and she was leading the anti-war rallies on the marina. She was 16.
I had just turned 16. My cousin was killed in Vietnam when I was 13. And I thought, you know, if you can't tell me why we're there and you're just throwing people in like cannon fodder and killing people, let's just bring them all home until you can figure it out, because this is senseless.
So we met over poetry and music. We just found out how much we both love poetry, politics, and music. Okay, so politics, yeah.
So it was, you know, I was dating another guy. He was stationed at Tyndall, so there was a whole group of us that kind of hung out together. There was a local head shop here called the Odyssey, and there was just great music, Wet Willie and Shade and all different kinds of really wonderful groups. And so we just kind of all hung out together, and these guys were from all over the United States. And so I felt very much like I was, you know, simpatico. I had my horizons were certainly broadened, and
we were all just really pals.
Yeah.
We just hung out and talked about music and listened to music and talked about Lawrence Ferlinghetti and all the other poets of the time.
Yeah. So
that's how we met.
And after all these years, you're still doing poetry and politics.
Yes,
we are.
And then in 1969, I got out of the service and I took off on the road for about 3.5 years and came back and tracked her down. She was in New Orleans. She was selling flowers on a street corner in New Orleans.
Well, in the meantime, I had graduated, and I was just a political activist. I was part of the first Bay County Biracial Committee. I was named and was a counselor for Clear Light, which was a drug crisis center that was backed by the Mental Health Association here, Pearl LaMonica and Dr. Clell Warner. And so I had done all of that. And then when I graduated, my sister and I hitchhiked from here to Mexico and took buses down into Mexico. I was trying to get to the Yucatan. And people were wonderful to us. It sort of restored my faith in humanity. And then when we came back through, we came through New Orleans, and I just loved it. I just thought it's a European atmosphere. The music was wonderful. The people were wonderful. The culture was really interesting. And I just wanted to move there. So I left here and moved to New Orleans and sold flowers on the street corner. I was a flower girl.
That's amazing. It sounds like something out of a movie.
Yeah. We decided we should write a book, and we should write her story, his story, and then their story, because we've
lived 100 lifetimes.
Yeah.
We've done so many.
We've been pirates. We've traveled Europe, playing music. We've done a lot.
You saw the picture of me in the Civil War outfit.
I did.
Our daughter was 13, and she got involved in Civil War reenacting. And that's before Rush Limbaugh. It was before it became political. It was just a bunch of history nerds who would sit out in the woods and talk about.
And we were not going to get involved. We were like, we'll take you. And then we got caught up in it because the history is just amazing. We did a whole medical thing so that, because we wanted people to see the ramifications of that. And the fact that people lost legs and arms and they were shattered for the rest of their lives, and they didn't just, get up and say, oh, it's over, So we put on an incredible medical event at each of the Civil War things that we did. So we thought we were being pretty effective.
I can see where that's quite impactful, because most folks would not think of that firsthand of the after effects of that war and for years following as well.
Absolutely. And we did both sides. That was part of the other thing. They called it galvanizing. You had to have uniforms for both sides. Of course, the medical was a little different because we did demonstrations as well as things on the battlefield. We had actual medics from Vietnam who said that it was too realistic. They couldn't take it. And so we were pretty effective at what we did. I mean, we would take like an oxtail and put a fake hand on it and then wrap it in bandages, and we made our own blood and we'd inject blood into it and when he cut it with the bone saw, you could hear that. Well, it was horrible. It's but very effective.
When we tell people, I was in the Air Force and she was doing the anti-war rallies, and they go, wasn't that unusual? I said, no, I've never known a soldier that liked war. The people who send them and make money out of it, they love it. But I've never known anybody who actually had to serve, who wanted to go to war. In the Civil War, I know in Florida, they conscripted you, and if you said no, they would burn down your house and kill your livestock. So you didn't have a choice. People always talk about traitors. The boys who fought, and the women, they're not traitors. They're just people with no other choice to make. And when I went in 1966, it was before the anti-war movement started, and it was my turn. If you had money, you went to college. If you didn't, you went into service. It was pretty much that simple. So
and it's funny. It's still going on today. I mean, if you want to get out of your small town, and you don't have prospects for going to college, you join the military, and that gets you out of your current environment and puts you in a different thing. And I probably with the hope that you won't have to go to war, but nonetheless, if you do, you're in there and you're theirs. And so, it's
we both lost good friends in Vietnam.
Yeah. Building an economy and a society based on war principles is kind of a bad.
Actually, we lost more friends after Vietnam when they came home. They just couldn't come back to what we call real life because they had already seen too much bad.
And it didn't help that they weren't treated well either.
Exactly. And they were not treated well by the other veterans because what they said was, you guys lost. All the stories you hear about, getting spit on by anti-war people, it's not true. I mean, it may have been in some places, but it certainly wasn't here. It was the other veterans that treated them poorly, and the veterans associations and Agent Orange and denying all of that for so many years, and so many of them dying from cancer and horrible.
And not only just and a lot of suicide.
The trauma, just the emotional trauma of, having to go through something where you didn't even know why you were there. You didn't know why you were killing these people or why they were trying to kill you. What a horrible thing. I mean, maybe World War II, they had a mission. They had a definite focus. And Vietnam, they didn't. It was just it was a way, I think, for big people to make money. Yeah. War machine. Bob Dylan, masters of war.
Brilliant songwriter. So now that we've learned how you met, how did Lucky Mud get its name?
It's from a Kurt Vonnegut novel.
Oh.
Kurt Vonnegut was one of those people who kept me sane when I was in the military, just reading his book. Well, sane enough. In his book, Cat's Cradle, he said, in the beginning, God made mud, and some of the mud was lucky mud, and they got to get up and look around at all the other mud. So
that's good. I like that.
So it's lucky me, lucky mud.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, in a way, we've laughed about it so many times because it not only describes, how we feel about life, but also about our music, because we don't do any one form of music. People will always say, well, what kind of music do you do? Which is why Americana is such a perfect example.
It's so vague. It's vague enough to work.
I tell people all the time, the way I see Americana is it's lyric-based acoustic music. It can be based in any form. It can be folk, it can be blues, it can be country, but it's essentially lyric-based, and it tells a story. And sometimes that can even be instrumental. If you're really good at telling a story instrumentally, it's the same sort of thing. So I don't think it necessarily excludes that, but I think it's just a wonderful catch-all phrase to keep from putting people in stupid boxes, because I hate boxes. I think boxes they're just counterproductive.
Cats like them.
Yeah, cats like them.
If they fits, they sits.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think, it not only fits us emotionally, psychologically, but it also fits with our music, and it fits with kind of the way we feel about the world. I've laughed so hard at, so many people think that they're pure or something. And I just keep thinking everybody in this country needs to have a DNA test. Everybody in the world, really, because you'll find out just how impure you really are and what a bunch of mutts we really are, and how we better all start pulling together because, we're all in this together. So, and we're all mutts. There's no purity anywhere. We always say there will be mud.
We've been playing music. We got married in 1972, and the first time we were on stage together, it was shortly before we got married, because we went to the Oklaahoma River Bluegrass Festival in 1972. And I pulled up and said, "How much to get in?" And she said, "Well, it's $5 a piece unless you're the musicians, and it's free." So I said, "Yeah, we're musicians." So we got the guitar, and we went up and we did a couple shows
they put us on stage. You're like, okay.
Oh, that's cute. I love that.
And then we spent almost 7 years in Nashville. And it just about destroyed us because it wasn't about the music. It's about the business of music.
Okay.
That's two completely different things. No one in Nashville ever asks you what kind of music you do. They say, "What do you do in the business?"
Right.
And so we loved music. We loved songwriters. We're real songwriters. People always go, "Who was in that band?" And we're like, "I have no clue, but I can tell you who the songwriters
who
were."
Wrote the songs, yeah.
Because that was what interested us.
We try to make sure we always acknowledge a songwriter when we do somebody else's song.
So I worked for Ronnie Milsap for 3 years, and I found out he and I discovered everything we did not want, which was we didn't want to be like those people. They were unhappy. They had everything they thought they ever said, or more than they ever thought they would have. And they were just miserable people. And we left there with such a bad taste. It was like, we're never playing music again. And we came back here and we actually started going to the Bayview Cafe. And he actually wrote a book in 1992. He had an agent.
My first novel came out in 92 and it went nationwide. It was a good run.
Got a star review in Publishers Weekly, got chosen as one of the top 10 first fiction, had his interview in the Publishers Weekly right next to Lorien Hemingway of the Hemingways.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just got great reviews all over the country. And it sort of pushed us out because we were like sort of reclusive at the time. We had, a small kid. And so we started being more society oriented. And so what happened was we started playing music again, but what we decided was we were never going to play a song that we didn't love. And we were never going to play for just a living because it was too cutthroat. So we worked regular jobs and we raised our daughter and bought our little house out in the middle of the woods because we could afford it. And we played on the side and we played what we wanted to play.
So we wandered in, we heard about the Bayview. We wandered in there. I had my old Guild, 67 Guild guitar, and Matt Law took it away from me and said, "Somebody needs to clean this up." So he cleaned it up and put the strings on.
Sounds like him.
That's exactly what he was then, he is now. He just couldn't stand to see my guitar look so dirty.
It was a very transitional, transformative time for us and reinvigorated our love for music. We'd always loved music, but, you just get to the point sometimes where you're like, I don't know. We knew we didn't want to do the business. We knew we didn't want to be in the business of music. And even now when we run our little concert series, our goal is to break even. As long as we're breaking even.
But isn't that a musician's goal?
Yes.
We do. We go to Ireland for 3 weeks and we come back and we broke even and pop the champagne. We broke even.
We've toured the world. We've gone to play over 10 years in Ireland at pubs all over Ireland, the west of Ireland mostly, and Scotland and the island of Sark in the English Channel and Nova Scotia and New Brunswick.
And now we play the Montana Cowboy Poetry and Music Festival in Lewistown, Montana.
In August, yes.
Yeah,
August.
so.
Did y'all go out there and yodel?
Yes.
And you yodel the cowboys and they go, "Oh, okay, it's the yodel." You can yodel here and people take their kids and come out of the room with them.
Well, we tell people we rent ourselves out as Martian hunters. For the movie Mars, what was it? Mars Attack. The Martians their heads would explode when they'd hear a yodel. Slim Whitman. So we tell people, we're renting ourselves out as Martian hunters.
Completely forgot about that.
It's so beautiful, and Lewistown, Montana is just great. It's the center of Montana. You can see 100 miles of golden prairie, and then the mountains kind of rise out of the prairie. It's just beautiful.
And I'm a Florida flatland girl, so I don't do precipices, But and of course, the mountains of Montana can be precipitous, as they say. But the truth is, the passes through them are absolutely gorgeous, and I can do those all day long. So
it's a wonderful. Hope we get to go again. You were talking about somebody being 94 years old. There's a man out there who is 94, and he has this beautiful yodel. And I told him I wanted to be him when I grew up. Music is, as well as anybody, music is it's what keeps your blood flowing.
Absolutely.
And mine has been interesting this year. Goodness, we've had, this has been a strange year for us because of my surgeries and all the other things that have happened.
But the other thing about it is when we go to Ireland, it's funny because, being Floridians, the idea of being a tourist just really doesn't suit. So when we go to Ireland, because we're musicians, we have an automatic entree. You just do, because people are like, oh, so what do you, and it makes life a lot more interesting because you don't feel like you're an outsider wherever you go. If you play music, you're just automatically accepted in, as long as you don't act like a jerk, which,
That is the cool thing about music is it's a skill. It's a traveling, working skill that you can take anywhere. And you don't have to necessarily look any further than a small town you might happen to be in. There's usually always at least one musician.
Woody Guthrie said, when you walk into a bar with your guitar strapped to your back, don't ever play it. Sit there, get a beer, and somebody's going to say, you play that thing? And you say, a little. Show me. And you walk in there playing your guitar, they're going to say, who is this guy?
Yeah, it's a fine line.
The etiquette of music. That's what we did in Ireland. We've played some of the most beautiful concerts halls in Ireland. We also played so many little pubs over there. But it's also like there's an etiquette too that, we do Florida Folk Festival and Will McLean and things like that. And we have songwriter circles. A lot of the festivals they love jams and all that stuff. We're not jammers, we're songwriters. We're concentrate on the lyrics. So we try to put our vehicle over our tent over where it's kind of far away from the jam sessions. And we have a songwriter circle where we invite everyone at whatever level they are to participate. And so we learn in Kerrville. Yeah, we learned. There's a real the Kerrville, Texas for the Kerrville Festival and the song circles. You play, this one plays, and it goes in.
Everybody gets a chance.
Right.
And you don't exclude anyone. I can't stand people who are arrogant. I can't stand it when they make fun of other people or they're just sitting there waiting for their turn. They're not listening to anybody else. I don't like that. I think if you're going to share music, you should share music. And I think it should be from your heart. And I think if you share stuff from your heart, I think everyone can appreciate that. Doesn't matter what level you're at. And if you're just doing it to be technically perfect, that bores me.
And what for?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You're not.
What are you trying to prove?
Exactly.
When you're sitting in the circle at Camp Stupid is our favorite place in Kerrville. You're sitting where this young guy named Lyle Lovett got his start, where you sit there with Eric Taylor sitting on one side of you and
Robert Earl Key.
Oh, yeah. It's just all this incredible music, but you're just all together. There's no hierarchy to it. I just love it.
Yeah, and you may like or not like some song better than the other, but I don't think music should be competitive or comparative. And I think it's a terrible, terrible thing to try to compare people to each other, their songs to each other. I don't like songwriting contests because of that, because I think whoever's judging it has a particular bent. If they love James Taylor and you do a song that sounds like a James Taylor song, you're going to win because that's their particular bent. But I don't think that's fair. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
And that'd also be how they feel that particular day.
That's exactly right. How can you compare great songs to each other? How can you compare and say one is better than the other? It's all totally subjective. And I think subjecting artists to your own subjectivity is somehow wrong.
I agree with you, Maggie. I think that comparison is a thief, first off.
Yes.
And I also think that music is a bond that musicians get to share with each other. And once they recognize that it's a bond, not a competition, we can all grow and do better.
I will give you an example. After Hurricane Michael, the Florida folk community sent in over $11,000 worth of money and goods to us that we helped distribute around
I remember.
to help people. That was the Florida folk community pulling together and saying, I love the whole idea of it takes a village, because I really think it does. And I think that we can isolate ourselves and pretend like we don't need anybody. But you know what? You need people. And having other people around you helps you grow as a human being and helps you understand how intertwined and interconnected we really are. And I think It Takes a Village is a perfect example. I just do.
Made me think maybe it takes a vineyard.
It takes a vineyard to drink all this wine.
It helps.
Yeah.
The village vineyard, It always helps.
It's one of the things that, songwriters circles. When you get a bunch of songwriters together, these tend to get a little bawdy and silly and play music and talk. It's one of the best things. You went to Will McLean?
I'm volunteering there this upcoming one.
It's my absolute favorite because the musicians and the audience camp together.
Yeah, we all camp
I
together.
like that.
Yeah.
Florida folk is really sweet.
Florida folk, the campground is too small to accommodate everybody.
And same for Barberville.
Right, exactly.
But like you found in Barberville, a song circle can go on all night long and you never get tired of it. You're just always amazed at what this person has come up with and this person and how this person can do a fiddle.
The other part of that is that, we love, like I said, we love lyrics. And so we kind of discourage lead breaks and all that stuff because it takes up time from someone's sharing their song. You know what I mean? And also, it's another funny thing that we kind of laugh about. We use songwriter circles to try out new things, to do kind of obscure songs that you might not do on stage. And I think the difference between that, because when you're on stage, you have a set kind of thing. But when you're in a songwriter circle, you can share these obscure things that you're doing that may not appeal to an audience, but might appeal, you get a kind of a feedback on it. And then we always laugh at the ones who come in their stage set at a songwriter circle. It's like, what are you doing? We can go see you on stage. Just
you were talking about the bond between musicians, but there's also a bond between the musician and the audience.
Yes.
And a lot of people I've known over the years have seen themselves as sort of like the bullfighter and the audience as the bull, but the audience they want you to succeed.
I always have people say to me, oh no, I'm not a musician. I just love music. And I'm like, you're 50% of the equation, because without you, we're just standing up there, playing to nothing. But between us, if you love music, you're just as much a musician as we are, because there's an appreciation that we develop for each other.
That's right.
And there's nothing better to
There's a line from a Roger Miller song. And this line is, when you sing for your supper, remember on the other end of the spoon, the guy's working for a song. It's that simple. That person is there because they need what you do, and you're there because it's a mutual thing. I've always loved being on stage. And I've been on stage for like 300 years.
Me too. Yeah, we do our little concert series, and I have to say, honestly, I love being on stage. I love performing. But I also love watching great audiences and great musicians respond to each other. I love that interaction. I like to see a really great performer get a really great response from the audience. It's a wonderful feeling. It's like kind of bringing people together and saying, hey, look what we can all do together,
We split a show with the new 76ers. You've seen them.
Oh, they're great, yeah.
Well, we split a show with them, and we got to use their Myrtle microphone. And the next day, I said, I need one. Got to have one. So that's what we've been using that now for a year.
It's organic, but it really is organic. You feel like you're just like this.
The freedom is also almost frightening when you're up on stage with it, because there's one wire, one microphone. There's no plugins. But once you realize that the audience is getting exactly what you're doing, then you have to come out and try it.
They're amazing microphones.
Yeah.
They are. They're like the someday list.
When you hear the new 76ers, they would sound good in anything.
Oh, yes.
So we're like, well, of course they sound great.
No, it's an acoustic.
but we used it ourselves, and we're like, oh my gosh, it feels great. There's a certain amount of discomfort some people feel when they're used to playing in bars and stuff, and you have to have a monitor really loud. So you don't have that. But I like it. I think it's.
And when you're used to singing over the crowd rather than to the crowd, you swing.
Or if you get used to not having monitors, no problem.
We've always managed to move into a different direction and try different things. She was right. We were 20 years. We were like doing pirate shows, playing music.
Yeah, we were actually the official roving pirates of the Conch Republic in Key West for many years.
Florida Seafood
Festival. We were the honor guard for King Rezio.
And we're still roving minstrels at the
Scottish
Central
Game.
Florida Highland Games in Orlando in January.
It's the same thing. It's sharing
Costumes,
stories.
music, and alcohol.
Yeah, but it's also sharing stories. I mean, that's what we do. We have these old Scottish Celtic ballads that we do, and we bring the stage to the clan mile and to the audience rather than having to sit on a stage, and it's pretty cool. It's interesting.
I've always enjoyed y'all. I remember the first time I met y'all, it was over across from the Java, and hearing y'all play definitely inspired me to pursue the folk path, even back then.
You know what? That was wonderful. Those were wonderful days. We
Great
had
bunch of kids that used to come in there.
What a great group of kids that used to come. You were part of it, and all the different ones. And I love the fact that, when we first started out, we were over here and the kids would be over in the park, and then they'd come over and they'd do a song. They'd go right back over there. And then it became more sharing. When they realized we were actually listening to them, then they started coming and staying and listening to everybody else. And I love that. I think inner involvement is so important because there's so much we can learn from each other. And when we forget that, then we get calcified.
Tell me about your music venue and who y'all have coming up throughout the rest of the year.
We live up at Econfina Creek, and we started a thing called Hip Camp where people can come and camp. But we built a stage prior to Hurricane Michael, and it stood tall. Not one board went off of it. And so we built a little pavilion across from it. So we have seating for plenty of people. And we just decided to start bringing music up to we were doing it at Roberts Hall, and it got pretty damaged. And so while they were repairing it, we started doing concerts at the house. And because we thought everybody kind of needed it. We needed the camaraderie and we needed that community. And we did a big fundraiser up there. And it became important. And people said they really liked, the atmosphere because it's outdoors. We started doing it every Sunday. We book a concert series for Camp Helen State Park. And we've been doing that for 9 or 10 years. I can't remember how long.
That's another one of my questions is how are things going at Camp Helen?
Oh my gosh, they're going great. We started out and one of the park managers there didn't want us to do music. And then, and so we started doing it at Topsail Hill State Park, which is the west end. Then at Camp Helen, Michael was on the board and we just started doing.
And they had a different.
Yeah, they got a new manager. So we started doing music there, and it's been, I think it's 10 years. I want to say it's 9 or 10 years, but it's just been amazing. And we started out, it was funny because we did the first show. We weren't sure how many people we were going to get. So we started out with like 25 chairs in the lodge. It's a big, historical building. We had to pull out every chair we had. And so it got to the point where we were seating like 125 or more. And then up the stairs, all over the place. And then the fire marshal said, no, you can't do that. So we're like, okay. So then we've dropped down to 100. But we were turning away 50 to 100 people for every show and have been for 10 years now.
And when COVID happened, do you know Marvin Holman?
I do.
I love Marvin.
He's great.
And he's an incredible videographer.
He's a great production guy.
Yeah. So because of COVID, everybody was having to cancel their things. So we asked Marvin if he would film it. And so for 2 years, he filmed every show. They're all on YouTube now. You can look at all the
Camp
shows.
Helen State Park on YouTube. We would only have like 10 people in the audience just to have an audience there, but we videoed it. And it kept the series going because we weren't sure what we were going to do. And but then last year we did a combination live and video. It was a little clunky because the video took precedence over the live rooms. This year we're not going to do the video. But we've just got amazing people. I'm trying to think Ruth Wyand. She just won the Gamble Rogers finger picking contest.
Wow.
I mean, she's like awesome. She tours like New Zealand and stuff. And she'll be here in, I think, February. And I've just got amazing people. I have to say, honestly, it started out we booked a lot of the Florida folk people. And then we started booking people like Pierce Pettis and Tom Kimmel. And, Tom Kimmel has written songs for movies like Runaway Bride. He wrote a song called Never Saw Blue. And it was funny because I hired him because I loved this one song. I didn't know anything about him. I just loved this one song called Ships. And when he came to do the show, he started talking about all the things he had done. And I'm like, my mouth is just falling over. So I had no concept. He talks about how he had simultaneously one song on Miami Vice and Captain Kangaroo.
Wow.
But I mean, he's been covered by like Joe Cocker, Sean Colvin. I mean, just incredible people.
Well, we've had so many great people, Sally Spring and Buddy Monlock and all these. We met them on the road. We just met them and got to know them, and then we booked them and became even better friends. So it's just really
Paul Cam and Eleanor McDonald from Northern California. Some of the most amazing songwriters, singers. Their harmonies are just unbelievably beautiful. So we're the luckiest people in the world. We really are the luckiest mud because we get to bring in people that we love and share them with audiences who've never heard of them before, but they trust us to bring in really quality shows. And
as you know from the beginning, Maggie does not allow talking during the music.
I appreciate that.
From the very beginning, she tells people, turn off your cell phone, and if you need to talk, go outside. Mm-hmm. And you have to enforce that. It's funny about law without enforcement. And we enforce it, she mostly, but after just a few weeks of an audience understanding that, then the audience also became the enforcers. Mm-hmm. Somebody new would show up.
Well, because for me, if you're there for a concert, we talk about this all the time. If you're at a bar and the tables are around, or a restaurant,
chairs face the table.
Chairs are facing the table and each other, then you're talking. That's fine. That's a bar or restaurant. But if all of the chairs are lined up facing the stage, that's a concert. And it's about the music. And it's about that music. So shut up. If you're not there for the music, you're there for the wrong reason. We call some people center of attention people. They have to sit right in the front and they have to talk louder than anybody. And you just look at them and you go, I don't get it. If you have conversation, that's great. Enjoy yourself. But in concerts, there's no call for that. There's just, you're there for the music. And if you're not there for the music, you're there for the wrong reasons. If you bring your dog and your dog is disruptive, you're there for the wrong reason. Sit in the back. You know what I mean? There's just etiquette. And I think people either haven't been taught the etiquette or they've forgotten the etiquette or they've just disregarded the etiquette. Either way, I see it as my job to provide a quality experience for the entertainer and for the audience.
And thank you for providing that protection because I really do appreciate it. I do, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
it makes a big difference.
It makes a difference. If you're doing rock and roll and the lyrics are not important and nobody cares, that's fine. But if you do lyric music, if you write lyrics that should be heard, that you want people to hear, you need a place where people will listen to what you're doing and appreciate the time and effort you've put into that song or that lyric. So,
if you're out there bearing your soul.
Exactly, yeah.
We still get emotional over so many great songwriters like Tom Waits, and there's just so many people.
Jason Isbell.
Their lyrics need to be heard and thought of. You need to think about what Guy Clark sings about.
I'll give you a great example. The first time we were in Ireland, we went into this place called Jury's Inn in Galway City. And I don't know if you know this, but the pubs close at what they call 9:30. They lock the doors. It's closed. If you're still in the pub,
you're there all night.
You can be there as long as you want, but they close the doors because it's a technicality, right?
Right.
So we had gone to get something to eat and we were running a little bit late. So the pubs were closed. So we went into our hotel bar. And so we met some street singers, the buskers who have been, and we just started sharing music back and forth. And the funniest thing, there was this mother-daughter sitting at the bar, and they said, "Well, now, do you know Dolly Parton?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Coat of Many Colors." And I said, "Absolutely." And they said, "Let's sing it." So we sat there and we sang Coat of Many Colors.
Everyone in Ireland loves.
They love her.
Dolly, and they love Steve Earle, and they love
Hank Sr.
I gotta get over there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They love great
music. If you say
music.
Hank Jr., they say who? But Hank Sr., they all know who Hank Sr. is.
I love it.
You should. You'd love it. And they'd love you. It's not a place to go to show off. It's a place to go to share music.
Yeah.
And I love it.
And those people sitting in the audience, half of them are some of the finest musicians you will ever hear. Mm-hmm. They could pick up a guitar or a banjo. And when they play banjo, they don't play like chinky, chinky banjo. It's just beautiful instrumentation.
Play it like
it's
an Irish instrument.
So
you'd love
same
it.
thing with the accordion. Mm-hmm. You know, when I hear accordion, I'm like oompa oompa oompa. They don't do it like that. They play beautifully.
So, how can folks find y'all online and beyond?
Well, they can go on our website, luckymudmusic.com, and that's mud with one D. It's a pretty extensive little website. We have pictures of us around the world, which is kind of cool. But we have a radio show that we do called Americana Cafe Sundays Radio Show.
85 episodes of that so far.
Yeah. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's
and
fun.
It's all the people that we've had on our stage. So it's all original music. It's all the people who've played our stages. So we have their permission to use their music. And Michael used to be a DJ with WPAP here locally. He's an overnight DJ. And so he's got a beautiful speaking voice. So he segues all the shows together.
I love to
puts them
segue
together.
songs. I love to sing one song into another. I've always loved it.
We love putting together music. So we have the radio shows, and we do the concert series. They can come to Maggie's Musical Farm every Sunday at 2:00, starting in October through April 30th. And then in May, we start doing like a once a month kind of local songwriter showcase. And just Hip Camp. We're on Hip Camp as Maggie's Musical Farm. We're actually 2 years in a row, we're like finalists for the best hip camp in the state of Florida. So
we were going to call it Maggie's Farm, but we found out that's the name of a giant pot business in Colorado.
Huge. I'm a Panama City girl, and I love being here, and I love sharing music. And the local music scene is really wonderful. It's
Always
really, and it's gotten more and more vibrant and younger, which I love. I think that's just great.
Well, thank you both for preserving folk music, Florida folk music, and advancing it all at once. And thank you both so much for being on the St. Andrews Jezebel podcast. And until next time,
thanks for having us.
Keep St. Andrews salty. One of the best things about St. Andrews is that you can see live music every day. That's right. There is live music being played somewhere in St. Andrews 7 nights a week. Fortunately, my friend Ken Schaefer creates and publishes a weekly schedule for St. Andrews as well as most of Bay County. Ken's spreadsheet schedule is updated often when there's any changes. Ken also shares individual music events and is walking the walk and talking the talk when it comes to supporting live music. Not only does Ken supply the music schedules, but he attends several music performances a week and takes fantastic photos of the musicians. As a working musician myself, I feel blessed to have Ken and his wife Donna as treasured members of our local musical family. Make sure you like and follow Ken's page, Salty Sounds in St. Andrews, and Oh Boy Music on Facebook, so that you'll always know where all the live music will happen. Thank you so much, Ken, for everything you do. And there you have it, folks. A story of love, activism, and adventure from Mike and Maggie McKinney of Lucky Mud. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the St. Andrews Jezebel podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the journey through the past, from anti-war rallies to selling flowers on the street corner in New Orleans and everything in between. I've known Mike and Maggie a long time, and they have lived a lot of fascinating lives, and they become more and more fascinating the longer I know them. Their experiences and passions for politics, poetry, and music are truly inspiring, and they remind me, and hopefully you, to never stop living life to its fullest. Well, until next time, keep St. Andrews salty.